Have you ever been stuck trying to open a stubborn jar lid? You twist and you turn using all your muscle, but it just won't budge. Then someone comes along, gives it a little tap in the right spot, and pop, it opens right up. That, my friends, is a perfect little example of a big idea. Wisdom is often way more powerful than sheer strength. Today, we're going to dive into a classic story that illustrates this exact point. A tale that has been told for generations to remind us that the sharpest tool we have isn't in our hands, but in our heads. So grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's explore why brains can triumph over brawn every single time. This story might just change the way you look at challenges forever. Once upon a time, nestled between rolling hills and a dense, dark forest, there was a magnificent city. This city was famous for its high walls, bustling markets, and prosperous people. It was a beacon of civilization, but one day, a shadow fell over this great city. A powerful king from a distant land, known for his vast and ruthless army, marched his soldiers to its gates. He was a man who believed only in might. His soldiers were a sea of iron and steel, their numbers seemingly endless. The king looked at the city walls and scoffed. He was certain it would fall in a matter of days. He ordered his army to lay siege, cutting off all food, water, and supplies. The plan was simple: starve the city into submission. Inside the city walls, panic started to spread like wildfire. The city's own army was brave and loyal, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Their supplies were dwindling fast. Day after day, the citizens watched from the ramparts as the enemy army grew more confident. The situation looked bleak. The city's council of elders, strong and experienced leaders, met day and night, but all their discussions ended in despair. They had strength, they had courage, but they had no answer to the overwhelming force outside their gates. Fear began to grip the hearts of everyone, from the mightiest warrior to the smallest child. It seemed that their beloved city was doomed to fall. But living within this great city was a man who was neither a soldier nor a nobleman. He was a poor, humble man, often overlooked and forgotten. He didn't have great physical strength or a chest full of medals. What he did have was a mind as sharp as a finely honed blade. He was known simply as the wise man. He had spent his life observing, learning, and thinking. While others trained with swords, he trained his mind. He watched the siege unfold, he saw the growing fear, and he knew that brute force would only lead to destruction. He approached the desperate city council and, with a quiet confidence, said he had an idea. The council, having no other options left, decided to listen. They were skeptical. What could this poor, unassuming man possibly do that their entire army couldn't? The wise man didn't propose a grand battle. He didn't ask for soldiers or weapons. His plan was far more subtle and, frankly, a bit strange. He requested a few simple things: some rope, a large basket, a bit of food and water, and a letter. The council, bewildered but desperate, granted his request. That night, under the cloak of darkness, the wise man was lowered from the city walls in the basket. He didn't go towards the enemy camp to fight. Instead, he made his way to a small, hidden cave he knew in the nearby hills, a place no one else would think to look. He was completely alone, armed with nothing but his wits. The entire city held its breath, wondering what on earth he was planning. The next morning, the invading king woke up expecting to see more signs of desperation from the city. Instead, his scouts reported something peculiar. They had found a letter tied to a rock that had been thrown near their camp. The letter was from the city's leaders. It was a message of defiance, but a strange one. It said, "We have more than enough food and water to outlast your siege for years. We are comfortable and well supplied. Your efforts are futile." The king laughed. It was an obvious bluff. He knew their supplies were cut off. He ordered his army to remain, confident that hunger would soon break their spirits. But then, a few days later, another strange thing happened. A patrol found a small, freshly caught fish near their water source with another note attached. This note taunted them, saying, "Our fishing is excellent today. We feast while you starve in your tents." The king was furious. How could they be fishing? He had blocked every river and stream. The next day, a loaf of freshly baked bread was found. Then, a small pouch of fresh grain. Each discovery came with a mocking note about the city's abundance. The king's soldiers started to murmur. They were on strict rations, while the people in the city were apparently feasting. Doubt began to creep into the camp. Was it possible the city had some secret source of supplies? The wise man, of course, was the mastermind behind all of this. From his hidden cave, he was sneaking out at night. The fish was one he caught in a tiny hidden stream the army had overlooked. The bread was baked over a small, smokeless fire he made. He was creating an illusion of plenty, using tiny gestures to create a huge psychological impact. He was attacking not the army's bodies, but their minds. He was planting seeds of doubt and frustration, turning the besieging army's greatest strength, its size, into a weakness. A large army needs a lot of food and a lot of morale to function. The wise man was draining them of both. The king, a man of simple brute force, couldn't comprehend what was happening. His mind only worked in terms of numbers and strength. He saw his army's morale crumbling. His soldiers were tired, hungry, and starting to believe the city was somehow magical or blessed. They questioned the wisdom of a long, drawn-out siege against an enemy that seemed to have endless resources. The king's own generals began to advise him to retreat, fearing a mutiny. The king, blinded by his own arrogance and now faced with a problem he couldn't punch his way through, became increasingly agitated and paranoid. He had surrounded a city, but he was the one who felt trapped. Finally, after a couple of weeks of this psychological warfare, the king couldn't take it anymore. His army was on the verge of collapse from within. He couldn't risk his entire force falling apart over a city that, against all logic, seemed to be thriving. In a fit of rage and frustration, he gave the order to pack up camp and retreat. The great, powerful army, which had come with such arrogance and certainty, turned its back on the city and marched away in defeat. They were not beaten by swords or arrows. They were beaten by an idea. They were beaten by a few fish and loaves of bread. The citizens of the city watched in disbelief as the endless sea of soldiers disappeared over the horizon. Cheers erupted from the walls, a sound of pure joy and relief. They had won, they had survived, and they had done it without a single major battle. When the wise man returned, he wasn't carried on the shoulders of soldiers. He simply walked back in, as humbly as he had left, but this time everyone saw him. They saw not a poor, weak man, but the savior of their city. The council, the generals, and all the people bowed to him, their gratitude and respect absolute. They finally understood. The strongest muscle in their city wasn't in the arm of a warrior, but in the mind of this one quiet man. And so, the story of the poor wise man who saved the city became a legend. It was told to children and grandchildren, a timeless reminder that creativity, strategy, and intelligence can overcome even the most overwhelming odds. It teaches us that when we face our own sieges in life, problems that seem too big, too powerful, too impossible, we shouldn't just think about how to fight them with force. We should step back, think differently, and look for a smarter way. Because true strength isn't just about how hard you can hit, it's about how cleverly you can think. Thanks so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of wisdom and strategy. Let me know in the comments about a time you used your brain to solve a problem that brute force couldn't handle. See you in the next video.